So this is the Zero, what is this? ADST, something like that. So this is basically the same bike I just rode earlier, but this is an adventure touring model. It's kind of you can see it's got quasi knobbies and it's got a little bit of a longer travel suspension, and the guy said that it's basically the same powertrain, but it's been detuned just a little bit to make it a little easier to ride. And right off the top, I'm sorry, they call it the DS. This is a Zero DS, and as you can see, this one's about $2,000 cheaper than the other ones. It's about 17 grand dealer pricing. We gotta head north immediately because they got this stupid fucking parade thing going on here. So immediately, so this bike is also set in sport. Again, you have an eco mode, a custom mode, a sport mode. It's the same dash, same powertrain, but it's detuned a little bit. And you got a longer travel suspension and you got some knobbies. And right away, this bike is definitely taller. I would say it's probably maybe even a full 2 inches, at least an inch and a half taller, because I'm having trouble flat footing this bike, whereas the other one I had my feet both down immediately. And the other thing I noticed immediately is this seat is much harder than the other seat was. But let's see if we can get some miles going here. Kind of get a feel for it. You can see that the handlebar is a little different. It's a little bit more wide swept than the other one. Gives you a little bit more torque to turn. It's just as quiet. I mean, you can definitely, I mean, these knobbies aren't knobbies, but you can definitely feel that they're knobbies and not street tires. There's a little bit of vibration coming up through the steering column and through my butt. So I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just you can definitely feel it's got a little bit less street manners than the other bike. And so these bikes also have a charging port right here. This thing right here is a storage unit, and it's just basically locked in right there, and you can pull it out and you know, store your keys, store your wallet, stuff like that in. So the other thing I noticed, it might be bike to bike, but this one seems to whine a little more. And I mean, the other one had 95 miles. This one has 108 miles. So it's about the same. But this bike definitely whines a little bit more when I get onto it. But yeah, I mean, he said it was detuned, but this one, the other bike, you crank the throttle all the way and it's a rush. On this bike, you crank the throttle all the way and it's a little bit lackluster in comparison. I mean, it still obviously gets you going fairly quick, but it's clearly tuned so that you have a little bit more throttle control. You can like a little bit more of a linear power delivery. The other bike was like you get on it and then it just goes. This one seems to be a little bit more adept at finesse, but man, this seat is a lot less comfortable. That other seat was super comfy, and rider position was super comfy. This rider position is a lot less comfy. This feels a lot more like my KTM, to be honest with you. This is a lot, I would say, more supermoto than dual sport. But you know, I can't stress this enough. In traffic, these electric bikes are worth it just because there's no heat coming up on your balls. Like, just the fact that you can just cruise on this bike without getting roasted is fascinatingly amazing. Again, my knees here, if I'm up on the pegs, there's basically a lot less. On the other bike, there's a lot of distance between the tank and the pegs. The rider triangle is a little bit more open. On this bike, the rider triangle is a little bit more compressed, and so I feel a little less comfortable. It's not an uncomfortable bike, but whereas the other one, I could probably ride the entire range without stopping, this bike really needs a little bit more of a comfortable seat. But again, I am wholly impressed. But to be honest with you, I rode the Zero S, the very initial one, several years ago at like a bike night type thing, and I was fairly impressed then, but it felt more like a electric scooter dirt bike thing than it felt like a proper motorcycle. The SR really feels like a proper motorcycle. This is somewhere in between. So this feels a little bit like a scooter in the sense that it's not really delivering crazy crunchy amounts of power. but it's not bad. I don't know how far off-road these knobbies will actually take you, but you definitely have the torque to climb rocks and stuff. But at 17 grand, this thing would be expensive to drop, and you wouldn't want to drop it. So I said the rest of the ergonomic stuff, I mean, that's full throttle right there. It really, going up that hill is really detuned. And to be honest with you, the ride comfort is suffering a little on this bike. I don't know if they just gave me the other bike had really underinflated tires, and so it handled really well and rode really well. But this bike is definitely a step down. And for a price difference of about $2,000, the other bike is well worth it, unless, you know, the look of the knobbies or whatever is really what you need. But as a side note, as a general side note of all Zero motorcycles, the fit and finish on these things is absolutely perfect. The little details like the solid kickstand, it's made out of a solid piece of cast aluminum. These brake reservoirs that are clean and triangular. The instrument cluster, which has a light sensor in it, so it automatically backlights when it notices you roll through the shade, and then dims when you knows you're out there. It's very easy to use. It's got a power plug on it. It's got this nice little storage. The paint is absolutely smooth and perfect. I mean, the fit and finish on this bike, the turn signals, the hazards, everything on this bike in terms of aesthetics and build quality. I mean, these mirrors, granted, these mirrors don't have to fight any vibration because, I mean, there's no vibration, but everything on this bike is just done properly. I cannot overstate how important that is, that it is done properly, because a lot of times some of these smaller manufacturers, I mean, they just don't have the economy of scale, so they'll cut corners. They'll, you know, they will economize on their casting, on their paint work, you know, here and there, because they're trying to sell some sort of, I mean, that's fucking full throttle, man, right there. That's everything she's got. I definitely like the other bike a lot better, because realistically, not going off-roading, not going even off-streeting, to be honest with you, not jumping over curbs with this, and as a result, actually, let's just go ride through campus real quick. It's been forever since I've been in here, and today's a Saturday, so I should be able to ride right through it. My alma mater. This bike is good, but the SR was definitely better. Look how eco-friendly I am. It's like I love Mother Nature. You know, and based on the conversation we were having, I mean, like, I felt that bump a lot more than I felt it on the SR. But, you know, when I was riding the SR, I was talking about, you know, if this is the future of motorcycles, I can deal. If this is the future of motorcycles, I can't deal. I will be the last guy who hangs up his two-stroke oil. I mean, fuck two-stroke oil. I'll be the last guy who hangs up his gas jug. It's just not enough. Hey, look, we're electric buddies, man. So what happens if I kill it? Oh, it just dies. Okay. I mean, going back to attention to detail, if you look, every single one of these bolts has a little white mark on it. Apparently it's smudging, but a little white mark on it, and that's a little oil mark that lets you know that somebody torqued that bolt and marked it as torqued. I mean, this bike is hand assembled, and I mean, it's just one of those things, right? Like, you can buy something made by a computer in Japan for 14 grand. It's got about 1 billion horsepower and goes 200 miles an hour. Or you can buy this, which is hand assembled. Actually, I don't even know. Is Zero American? I think they are. Hand assembled by whoever, wherever, and made with tender, loving care. You know what I think the other problem with these bikes is, when I was earlier talking about the noise and lack of noise and how it wasn't going to work and wasn't going to be safe or whatever, I think it takes away some of that charm. You know, when you pull up next to a kid in the back of a minivan, and you're riding this, you can't pop a wheelie, you can't vroom at them. All you can do is like give them a little thumbs up, and you don't get that magical moment where the kid's eyes get super big and he's like dreaming about the day that he too can be a motorcycle rider, and you don't get that. He just looks at you, he's like, hey, nice Econobox, bitch. Priuses are for losers, and fry riding's wife. But I mean, this right here is this bike's natural element. Right here in the heart of downtown, you never really cross 30 miles an hour, maybe 35 if you're filtering through traffic like I am, But, it doesn't get hot, it doesn't discharge, it recharges itself every time you let off the gas, regens a little bit, and it doesn't keep your balls warm. It's nice and comfortable, although the other bike was more comfortable. But it's pretty comfy, and I mean, look at the dynamics. You can't stand up on it like a dirt bike. The handlebars aren't high enough. You end up with your ass out in the air. Like, never mind. Like what? If I had to buy an electric motorcycle, it would be the SR. Granted, I haven't ridden the Bimoto and I haven't ridden any of the others, and this is literally the 10th minute I have of riding an electric bike, but this would not cut it for me. I mean, if somebody gave me one of these and was like, here, I want you to ride this for a couple weeks or something, I'd be like, hell yeah, I'd ride the shit out of it. But I wouldn't put my hard-earned money down for one of these. No way. I mean, and the other thing is, my range on this is probably not going to be that great because I'm basically cranking it to the stop every single time I get on it. I mean, that's the balls, that's the beans, as they say on Top Gear. Except not anymore because BBC took it away from us. But I will say this: I've been riding. This is probably between the two bikes, I put in maybe half an hour of seat time now. I no longer find myself instinctively grabbing for the clutch. It's like my brain has understood that it's not there, and you don't have to go for it all the time. The transmission on this thing is totally fine. The problem is that this bike doesn't have the power of the other bike, and in my opinion doesn't have enough. They're actually really flickable. They feel very light. I never feel like I'm riding something that weighs as much as a liter bike. I mean, this doesn't feel as light as my Supermoto, but really there's not a whole lot of things that will feel as light as a Supermoto. And these bikes have basically the same brakes. These are a little less effective, probably because of the knobbies, but they're pretty solid either way. Anyway, I'm about to pull back into AF1 Motorsports. Again, I want to give a big shout out to them for being kind enough to let me borrow their bikes. It's a shame they didn't have an FX, but based on talking to the guy there who knows, he said that it wouldn't really meet my needs anyway.